Honorable Senators, good morning.
Morning.
Sunday past was the first Sunday in Advent. The focus is usually on hope. As senators, you are engaged to bring hope to others. Proverbs 31, verses 8 and 9 states, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly." As leaders and senators, you are called upon to stand up and to enact laws that will protect the most vulnerable in our society, primarily our children and elderly. In times of crisis, persons listen, look, and anticipate how you will respond and what actions you will take. For many, the last few weeks in our country have been a difficult time. When persons wonder, is there anything that is sacred, or persons that are beyond the touch of evil? And each of you as leaders must ensure that you are doing your best to assure persons that you will continue to stand up and enact laws that will protect all, that will bring about justice and safety for everyone, and will bring hope when persons feel hopeless and discouraged. In times of challenge, words can seem inadequate, but each of you and all of society must hear the call to action. Listen to Isaiah 1 and a part of verse 17. Learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression. Albert Einstein said, "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything." Leadership at times can be a lonely road where good deeds are not noticed or even overlooked, especially when times are tough and persons are facing life storms. But I want to encourage every senator to remember, you've been appointed to serve in this season. Therefore, each day you must be determined to give the best service you can for the good of all, and to be a person of integrity always. I want to encourage you that a lot has been accomplished, but there will always be work to be done. Our Bahamas is changing and evolving, and all stakeholders must do their part to ensure that our country develops in a positive manner for all. Endeavor to be a positive influencer and a change maker. Be a person of compassion that connects with our people, listens to them, and seeks to address the deficiencies that are present in our society. Proverbs 3 and 27 states, "Do not withhold good from those whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it, to act." Mother Teresa states, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." I trust that each of you in this season of Advent may continue to create ripples that will bring about positive change for all and give hope when persons feel discouraged and despondent. Let's pray. Dear God, we look to you, who is the source of all wisdom and the God who hears the cries of all hearts. Empower each senator to be persons of positive change and transformation in our Bahamas. Strengthen them in the times of their weakness. Give them courage when they're afraid. Guide them in the ways of peace, and may their leadership continue to be a blessing to all they serve. In the precious name of Jesus we pray. Please join in the prayer of our Lord. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Honorable Senators, the President and the Vice President are both absent from the meeting today, so we'll now entertain a motion for another Senator to occupy the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark, I move that Senator Darren Pickstock to take the chair.
Second.
Aye. in the world.
Good morning, honorable senators. I'd like to start off by always thanking Madam Chaplain for her words of encouragement and giving us our charge this morning. Thank you so very much. We will jump straight into the session, adoption of minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes of the sessions of the Senate held on Thursday, 7th November 2024, and Monday, the 18th November 2024 be adopted.
Is there a second? Motion for leave of absence, leave to resign. It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting on the minutes of the meeting for the 7th of November 2024 and the 18th of November 2024 be adopted. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The ayes have it. Adoption of minutes. The minutes are adopted. Motion for leave of absence and leave to resign. Swearing in of new senators. Communications by the President. Message from the Governor General. Message from the House of Assembly.
Message from the House of Assembly.
Bahamas number 31. Message to the Honorable the President and Honorable Members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bill and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to repeal and replace the Local Government Act. House of Assembly, Nassau, 20th November, 2024. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following orders. The Industrial Tribunal Remuneration of Members Order 2024.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further tabling of documents.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate a copy of the following notice. The National Crime Intelligence Agency Amendment Act 2024, appointed day notice 2024.
Order that the notice be brought up. Order that the notice do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following directions. The Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2027, 2029, 2031, 2034, 2044, and 2054 Directions 2024. The Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock Number 2, 2027, 2029, 2031, 2034, 2044, and 2054 Directions 2024. The Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock Number 2, 2027, 2029, 2031, 2034, 2024, and 2054 Directions 2024. The Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock Number 4, 2025 Directions 2024. And the Public Debt Management Bahamas Savings Bond 2025, 2026, 2028, and 2030 Directions 2024.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate a copy of the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services Annual Report 2023.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
And none, Mr. Chairman.
Communication by ministers. Communication by senators. Questions. Answers to questions. Presentations of petitions. Appointment of select committees. Report of committees. First reading of bills. Second reading of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you. Good morning to senators. Mr. Chairman, I rise to move for second reading and committal of the Local Government Bill 2024, a transformative piece of legislation intended to reshape and revitalize the framework of local government in our family islands. At the outset, Mr. Chairman, I would like to foreshadow an amendment to the bill that will be moved at the committee stage, which is an amendment to clause 43 of the bill, which deals with the timing of the next election of councillors, of district councillors, and going forward, setting a fixed date, the third Wednesday of June every 3 years, and I will make that amendment at the appropriate time during the committee stage. As I said, Mr. Chairman, this is a transformative piece of legislation. The family islands are an integral part of our culture, our existence, our heritage, and indeed our future. And unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, over the years, the development of our islands have not always gotten the priority that they deserve. This Local Government Bill 2024 builds on the foundation set by the Local Government Act of 1996, which at the time was essential in empowering our local communities through the establishment of district councils and town committees. In the current structure, there are 33 local government districts, 13 of which are second scheduled districts, including 41 town areas, and there are 20 third scheduled districts for a total of 33 districts, local government districts. All 33 districts have district councils which are expected to work in harmony with the relevant national authorities in an effort to make provision for vital services and the general upkeep and maintenance of public buildings and public spaces. Mr. Chairman, we must acknowledge that while the 1996 Act brought structure and was intended to empower districts by giving them more autonomy, over time that autonomy has been significantly reduced. It has become clear that limited financial and statutory autonomy has prevented councils from operating at their full potential. And this 2024 bill directly addresses these challenges. Mr. Chairman, the Department of Local Government is the parent of the system of local government in the Bahamas. The bill clearly outlines the structure of the department and makes provision for the appointment of assistant directors. The assistant directors will have direct oversight and responsibility for specific districts or regions, thus ensuring an enhanced focus on the pressing needs of local communities. This oversight and focus will assist with bridging the gap between local and central government authorities and will help bring further relief to Family Island communities based on the challenges which they face. Assistant directors will share roles and responsibilities within the department, thus alleviating the strain and the workload presently placed on the office of the director. Mr. Chairman, over the past 28 years, since 1996, the Department of Local Government and local government practitioners have been challenged with navigating roles and responsibilities where legislation has seemingly been silent. Ambiguities with interpretation has plagued the department, creating a pressing need to clearly outline the roles and responsibilities of the minister, the directorate, Family Island administrators, government agencies and town committee, and district council members. It has also created a need to provide further clarification with respect to the functions and responsibilities of town committees, district councils, and statutory boards. This bill seeks to settle a number of questions that have arisen since 1996. It acknowledges the pivotal role that the Family Island administrator plays with respect to the central government. This role is in part to act as the executive secretary and regulatory advisor to local government authorities and to be the central government's arm in the Family Islands. The roles and functions of elected officials, particularly chairman and chief councillors, are also detailed, along with the expectation for all parties to work together for the further development of our local communities. With respect to the town committees, district councils, and statutory boards, the intent of the implementation of a system of local government in the Bahamas was to empower local authorities with statutory responsibilities. However, since 1996, the department has faced challenges which have arisen as a result of statutory functions not being clearly defined or because of subsequent changes to legislation subsequent to 1996. This, in some cases, would have, quote, re-centralized statutory responsibilities, ultimately causing some statutory boards to become barely functional. This bill seeks to reinstate and in some cases expand specified statutory responsibilities, particularly with respect to building control, town planning, road traffic, hotel licensing, and port matters. To also streamline the building approval process, this bill raises the local limit where a Ministry of Work engineer is stationed from 2,500 square feet to 3,000 square feet for a single-story dwelling home. This, it is expected, will help to reduce the lead time for building permit approval for larger structures, eliminating the need for any home up to 3,000 square feet to require New Providence Ministry of Works approval. For years, Mr. Chairman, Family Islanders have complained about the lengthy process for building permit application and approval. And so we are pleased that in districts where there are district works engineers, the size threshold for projects to be approved locally will be increased. This will bring much needed economic development and decrease bureaucracy for Family Island residents. As it relates to financial provisions and accountability, the bill outlines precise requirements for budgeting, fund allocation, and audits. These stipulations support clear financial accountability on all levels. This bill seeks to outline procurement processes and provide a level playing field for persons wishing to offer their services through contractual work, and the bill speaks specifically to the avoidance of conflicts of interest. There will be checks and balances to ensure that local communities receive value for money through projects undertaken by their district councils and town committees. It reflects and falls in line with the current Procurement Act to ensure that there is fair and equitable distribution of contracts in the Family Islands as well, Mr. Chairman. The bill also ensures collective responsibility with respect to fiscal matters. It clearly addresses the conflicts of interest, which again encourages transparency. And so councillors and the family members and the family is defined up to cousin. It just says cousin. I know it didn't go. I assume that is first cousin. Right. Have to, recuse themselves when consideration for contracts are being given. It clearly, as I said, clearly addresses conflicts of interest, which again encourages transparency. The new bill gives councils revenue-raising powers, which is a significant shift from relying on funding solely from central government. This funding revenue-raising authority, Mr. Chairman, is most crucial as it enables districts to generate revenue locally and thereby being able to supplement their current subventions from the government. We were pleased this year, Mr. Chairman, to increase the subvention of the local government councils by 10%. And this was done for councils throughout the country. The bill will also make provision for additional project funding, which will be tailored to community needs and will support the development of new programs, help improve infrastructure, and enhance local services. Mr. Chairman, for a long time, town, committee, and district council members and statutory board members have freely given of their time, effort, and in a lot of cases, personal resources in an effort to contribute to their community. The stipends applied for their service would truly never equate to the service rendered, but nevertheless, this bill will also increase the stipends applied for town, committee, and council members, and to institute a stipend for statutory board members. The bill explicitly details in advance what officials can expect with respect to compensation. Mr. Chairman, with respect to elections, with the implementation of this bill, a specified and a structured timeline and methodology for local elections will be established, setting a fixed term. This clear approach to scheduling provides a reliable framework for local representatives and constituents alike. It will assist with financial and project planning and enable practitioners to solidify community planning initiatives for their districts within their terms of office. By standardizing election procedures, the 2024 bill not only streamlines election planning, but strengthens democratic participation. The bill, Mr. Chairman, also addresses training. And even though training has formed part of the Department of Local Government's mandate, there was no mandatory training. This new bill makes provision for the mandatory training of select practitioners, which indicates a commitment to a functioning system of local government with trained practitioners. It promotes continuous professional development and preparedness for leadership roles. Mr. Chairman, there have also, over the years, been complaints where persons could not get their appeals heard in a timely fashion. And to facilitate a quicker process, in, in Section 41.3, the minister may delegate the authority to hear an appeal under the section to the director, deputy director, or assistant director. This is a significant step in the right direction, Mr. Chairman. And so, Mr. Chairman, in our blueprint for change, we promise local government reform. Family Islanders had a lot of input to formulate this legislation, and thanks are due to the members of the committee who traveled to these islands, held town meetings, and listened to councillors and constituents throughout the various communities to garner their recommendation. Also in our blueprint for change, Mr. Chairman, we promise to enhance the ease of doing business for Family Islanders. And this Local Government Bill 2024 does just that. We promise to decentralize decision-making, putting power in the hands of communities through local government. Once again, this Local Government Bill 2024 does that. In our blueprint for change, Mr. Chairman, we promise to empower local government to have revenue-raising powers, and we are doing that in this Local Government Bill 2024. This bill represents a significant leap forward for governance in the Bahamas, bringing decision-making closer and more effectively, I might say, to the people it affects. And so this bill is a testament to our government's commitment to empowering the Family Islands, enabling them to manage their communities in which they live with greater autonomy and effectiveness. Madam President, Mr. Chairman, this has been a long process, but we believe that we are taking a significant step today. In effect, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, this, if we were to look at it in a broader sense, this bill is an integral part of our democracy. And local government brings democracy and governments close to the people. And by building on the framework from Local Government Bill 1996, we are putting in place those improvements so that residents in our communities throughout our Family Islands can more fully participate in a meaningful way in the democratic governance of their communities and, by extension, their country. And in speaking of the democracy, I just want to make 2 points generally, Mr. Chairman, is that it is coming up, I suppose, on that season when we begin to look at national elections. And I remember, and I think there are two things I want to sort of highlight that we should look at as we move into that season. I recall during the last election, of course, we were in the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic. At that time, we also moved to a permanent register using the 2017 register, Mr. Chairman. And there was tremendous difficulty experienced by people who had perhaps moved from one constituency to another in transferring. We know that the COVID-19 period was a tremendous challenge economically. And so I remember experiencing situations where individuals would have perhaps lost their job, or they were furloughed from their job, the business closed down where they worked, they moved in with family members, but the procedures that would enable them to transfer, having a utility bill, having a letter from the landlord, very, very difficult. And in fact, I would dare say, Mr. Chairman, disenfranchised many Bahamians during that period. The requirement that if you lost your voter's card, you have to get a police report put a lot of extra strain on the police. Many people were not minded to go and get a police report. We understand the rationale being that being a voter's card being a national identification, that if it is lost, much like if a passport is lost or any other form of national identification is lost, there has to be a report in order to replace it. I think going forward, we need to be able to tweak these requirements because, I experienced, a gentleman working at the hotel closed, he couldn't pay his rent, he moved in with his sister. Well, he didn't have a utility bill. Landlord reluctant to write letters and those sorts of things. So I'm just thinking, I'm saying this within the context of when we talk about being able to participate in our democracy, to be able to make it easy for people to do things like transfer and verify where they live, etc. We just experienced an election to the north of us, and a lot of their discussion is, and I don't think it applies to us, but when you start having requirements, these stringent requirements, it tends to disenfranchise a segment of your population. There are some people who don't want to go in the police station for any reason, frankly, to put in a report. And so I'm just saying that as we discuss this, as we move forward, and we heard that the Boundaries Commission is being formulated, etc. Part of all of those discussions, I submit, should be making it easier for people to participate. And the final point I want to make at this stage, Mr. Chairman, is, again, as we have experienced over the past few years, I said to someone, anybody can take a few dollars and go into a store and buy one of these, get some minutes, put it on there, and then they're live on television for all the world to see. And we have this proliferation now of people going live and talking about people and calling people names and attributing behavior to them. And people who are in public life, of course, we have a responsibility to conduct ourselves with integrity and in the proper fashion, Mr. President. We just see this proliferation of attacks. And I don't know what we do. I don't know what we do about it, but it's just, I thought I would just highlight it because it seems that every day you have more of these things, and where people in public life are being, on both sides of the divide, or on all three sides of the divide, people are being constantly scandalized. People, when making democratic decisions, need to be informed. They need to, a big part of being able to have an effective democracy is being able to have information upon which to make your choice. And I think we just need to be mindful as we going forward, these developments that cause so much stress to everybody, Mr. Chairman, and I'm not only speaking about on the government side, but of course it happens to there are victims on the other side, and all participants. And I don't know what we do about it, other than to be aware and realize that not everything that someone goes on a live and says, not a live the phone company, but a live meaning a live broadcast, is true. And so those are some of the challenges we face with our democracy. But Mr. Chairman, I think this is a move in the right direction to enhance local government. I'm sure during the course of the debate we will hear about experiences of those who are from the Family Islands with local government, and perhaps some suggestions of expansion of local government even to New Providence. And those are things that we that continue to be a work in progress. But with those few words, Mr. Chairman, I would like now to submit for the consideration of the Senate and move for second reading of a bill for an act to repeal and replace the Local Government Act.
Thank you for your contribution. Is there a seconder? Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Kirk Russell.
I'm gonna book. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. Mr. Chairman, today is another blessed opportunity for me. I can stand on my feet and contribute to this debate in this honorable place. I thank God. God is truly good, man. I wish to thank our distinguished Prime Minister, of course, for his continual confidence and support. And I pray God's blessings and protection over his life and that of his family. Mr. Chairman, with your leave, I wish to preface my contributions by extending sincere condolences to the family of PLP Starboard Councillor Mr. Hilliard Higgs of Hawksbill, Grand Bahama, and Mr. Amos Pinder of Pinder's Point, Grand Bahama. Both gentlemen gave outstanding services to their family, the Progressive Liberal Party, and by extension, the country. For decades, they made personal sacrifices, giving bountifully of their time, talent, and treasures for the building up and advancement of the country. Mr. Chairman, they both mentored me and supported me greatly, and I can tell you, when Starboard Councillor Pinder and Starboard Councillor Higgs supported you, they did it all the way. May their souls rest in peace and rise in glory. Mr. Chairman, on Sunday, December 1st, we commemorated World AIDS Day. And on the island, we celebrated at Mount Zion Baptist Church in 8 Mile Rock, Grand Bahama, where Reverend Agatha Martin, who was a senior pastor, delivered a powerful message of hope. The service was organized by HIV/AIDS Survivors Benefit Foundation, HASB. I wish to congratulate 39-year HIV survivor and founder and CEO of HASB, Mr. Kevin Delancey, for the outstanding work he and his team are doing on the island of Grand Bahama in the areas of HIV and AIDS education, home care of patients, free rapid testing, free distribution of condoms, among other things, to fight the transmission and spread of the virus. Mr. Chairman, next year, by the will of God, Mr. Delancey will celebrate 40 years living with the disease, one of only a handful of people in the world who have survived that long. Magic Johnson is now living 33 years after being diagnosed. And let me just mention that he, Mr. Delancey, was diagnosed by the late, great Dr. Perry Gomez, former cabinet minister and member of Parliament, who himself would have contributed tremendously, both locally and internationally, in the fight to eradicate the disease and the stigma associated with the disease by 2030. And so I sincerely want to congratulate Mr. Delancey and his dynamic team of volunteers who do all they can. You know, before I move on, let me just say this, Mr. Chairman. You know, on the island some years ago, you would hear so much talks about AIDS and the spread of the disease. But, you know, quietly and confidently, organizations like HASB hold these education seminars, and they focus solely on educating the public. And today, we have not, in Grand Bahama at least, had a mother-to-child transmission of AIDS, HIV in over 3 years on that island. And so the work that Kevin Delancey and his team are doing along with the Grand Bahama Health Services is just outstanding. And I would like for my colleagues to just give them a round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence. Now to the matter at hand to second this transformative bill. Mr. Chairman, this piece of legislation is another promise made and another promise kept by this Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis administration. I am so happy for the people of our family island who have waited for this kind of attention for a very long time. Mr. Chairman, there's no question that our family islands are an integral part of what makes our country uniquely beautiful, and their panoramic beauty is said to be a part of God's most marvelous creation. Family islands contribute to our cultural and heritage makeup and are so very important to what makes us proud to be Bahamian. And for true national growth regarding economic diversity, the further development of our family island must be given serious attention. And that is if we are going to secure our future and the future of generations to come. Mr. Chairman, let me say that nothing happens before its time. And I believe that this is the family island's time. Just look at the fact that today our family islands can boast of sending the country its current Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and Minister responsible for works and family island affairs, that's local government. Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'll get right into the bill. Firstly, giving credit to the former administration of 1996, who set the foundation for local government by introducing the 1996 Local Government Act, hence making local government a reality. The intention then and now is to decentralize the administration of government by giving those in the family islands greater opportunity to manage the affairs of their individual island. This Local Government Bill 2024 seeks to build on the Local Government Act of 1996 by modernizing, strengthening, and implementing new provisions for the progressive advancement of local government. Mr. Chairman, it has been almost 30 years since the Act of 1996 has been amended, and I'm certain that family islanders appreciate this transformative piece of legislation. Mr. Chairman, there are some 33 districts throughout the family island led by their council, and these councils led by a chief councillor and his or her team of elected practitioners oversee such services as the general upkeep and maintenance of public buildings, public spaces, such as road verges, cemeteries, school grounds, and so on, joint community projects, garbage collection, as well as overseeing the smooth running of various statutory boards. And they must do it in harmony with other government authorities. For those of you who have never experienced family island life, you may not appreciate how significant these responsibilities are to the people in the family island. But I, who was elected as a practitioner for 2 consecutive terms for my township, can tell you that they are critical to the overall morale and success of these communities. I acknowledge that while the Act of 1996 brought structure and intended to empower these districts by giving them some more autonomy, I can say without fear of contradiction that over time, that autonomy has been watered down and reduced. This bill seeks to remedy these weaknesses and give legislative authority to the councils, thus guaranteeing their autonomy while creating a new sense of self-reliance for townships, councils, statutory boards. Mr. Chairman, the Department of Local Government has the overall management responsibility for the system of local government in the Bahamas. And from 1996 to the present, there has only exists the position of Director of Local Government, who is stationed in New Providence, leaving practitioners having to literally toe line to get things done in a timely manner on these family violence. What this bill does is that it makes provision to appoint some 11 assistant directors. These assistant directors will have direct oversight and responsibility for specific districts or regions and disciplines, thus ensuring a direct focus on the daily needs of each local community. This oversight and direct focus will assist in truly linking local leaders in the Family Islands with central government authorities, thus eliminating red tape, extended time, and unnecessary processes associated with getting the people's work done in the Family of Island. Moving forward, local councils, statutory boards, and township can expect swift relief to the many challenges they face. The fact is, this government is ensuring that services and benefits that are enjoyed here in New Providence are also realized in every Family Island, finally bringing into existence a true form of local government. Mr. Chairman, during the era when I was elected as a local government practitioner, there were always local debates as to the role of the Family Island administrator. I believe Abaco could attest to this. During the era when I was elected local government practitioner, there was always local debates as to the role of the Family Island administrator versus that of the chief consular and his or her district council. You must appreciate that prior to 1996, Family Island administrators were known as commissioners, and they were basically the local authority of the Family Islands. You know, I remember men like Harrison Thompson, Kennard Bettle, Alexander Williams, Charles King, Archie Nen, Joe Ferguson, people like that, right, as commissioners, right? However, certain languages in the 1996 Act seem to limit their role to the roles of commissioners, now administrators, to that of secretary to the council. And of course, there was constant confusion and uneasiness. Mr. Chairman, this bill will resolve all ambiguities and provide clarification of various interpretations regarding the roles and responsibilities from the minister to the directorate, to the Family Island administrator, to government agencies, town committee members, and the district council members. There will finally be peace and productivity in the valley. Mr. Chairman, one of the more significant amendments to the 1996 Act outlined in this bill is the now ability for councils and township to raise revenue. And may I add that even though this administration, for the first time in a very long time, have increased the local government council's budget by some 10% across the board and across all 36 districts, the need for additional funding for special projects is dire. Now, those of you in Nassau may not truly grasp the point when I say that the need is dire. But I give you an example. If you want to have a high school basketball tournament on the family of island, the only way the schools could find the monies to do that is through the local government boards. And if all the monies that have been applied to these local government boards is caught up in recurrent expenditures such as garbage collecting, cemetery cleaning, voyages cleaning, school cleaning, then they have no monies to do special other projects, create parks, clean parks, build parks, create programs and projects for young people, senior people, you name it. And so these local government boards really need the extra money. And so the need for additional funding for special projects, I say, is dire. I can tell you that from its inception, practitioners have been pleading with successive governments to give them the legal authority to raise revenue. This bill gives council revenue-raising powers, which is significant from relying totally on the mercies of central government. The authority given to raise funds is very critical because it enables districts to generate revenue locally, giving them the ability to supplement their current subvention from the central government, thus providing the financial independence needed to develop and implement new sustainable programs throughout their family islands. It will also better position the islands with the ability to improve their infrastructure locally and enhance local services throughout their local communities. This has happened because the minister, as well as Prime Minister, not only listened to the people, but more importantly, they themselves lived it and understands the urgency needed, and they acted accordingly. Mr. Chairman, this is a game-changing tool that has been given to every family islander, and I expect big things from the next slate of practitioners. Mr. Chairman, I now wish to spend a few minutes talking about local government members' stipend. The fact is, from its inception, town committee, district councils, and statutory board have basically given their communities their time, their talent, and their resources for free, demonstrating their love of their communities and indeed the country. I am pleased that this bill makes the necessary provision to increase the stipend for all practitioners and for the first time institute a stipend for statutory board members. No doubt, even this increase is not adequate, but we're trending in the right direction. The bill explicitly outlines what any potential practitioner, anyone who wants to run in the next upcoming election, can expect regarding pay before he or she decide to offer for himself for services. Mr. Chairman, while we're talking about money, I wish to encourage the government to take a serious look at those long-term employees within the local government system. I know personally of employees who have been engaged with local government for some 25, some even 27 years, all right, and are still contractual. I am confident that this caring administration will fix that. I am certain that the hard-working minister with responsibilities for the public service and labor will play a pivotal role regarding all local government workforce concerns and do the right thing, as usual. Mr. Chairman, The final point I want to make regarding this bill is the matter of fixed date election. And I heard the leader of government business say that there will be some changes. So I think I'm going to skip that for now. But the one thing I want to say is that I hope and pray that this fixed term election does not stop with local government. I hope it moves to the big election. Mr. Chairman, in closing, allow me to congratulate the Ministry of National Security and the Attorney General's offices for successfully relocating and officially opening the new state-of-the-art 8 Mile Rock Police Station and the new state-of-the-art 8 Mile Rock Magistrate Courts. Both agencies are in the Obadiah Hercules Wilchcombe Complex, Pinedale, 8 Mile Rock. And I can say that for far too long, police officers and the court staff were required to work in what I call substandard condition for a very long time. However, today is indeed a new day for all staff as they work in flush, outstanding offices accommodation. Before I take my seat, Mr. Chairman, I want to also report to the Bahamian people that the great strides that is taking place on the construction of the new health care campus on the island of Grand Bahama. The verticals of the hospital are going up with haste. And according to the health minister, all indication is that the government will be able to turn the keys and open the doors on phase 1 of the hospital with its scheduled date for during the third quarter of next year. You can wrap for that. This is indeed a big deal for the residents of the Northern Bahamas. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to report that the remodeling and total refurbishment of the Kipling Building Complex, which will become the new Northern Bahamas campus of the University of the Bahamas, located downtown Freeport, is moving at rapid speed and looking beautiful. And I am certain that the Minister of Education will give an official update in short order. All these and much more are part of the more than $2 billion of capital investment that is happening on the ground now on the island of Grand Bahama. Madam President, as a family islander and one who has served my people as a local government practitioner for two consecutive terms, I am pleased to second this bill, and may God continue to bless the government of the Bahamas, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Take that down.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to repeal and replace the Local Government Act. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michaela Barnett-Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always a pleasure to have you sitting in the chair. God is good, and he's brought us back to this honorable place safe and sound. Before I get into my contribution, Mr. Chairman, I would like to wish a very, very happy birthday to former Senator Vienna Gardner. Today is her birthday, and we hope that she has a wonderful day today.
Yes.
Yesterday's devotion in the House of Assembly was very powerful. The House's chaplain called upon the members of the Assembly to fight against corruption and to lead with integrity, because that is the antidote to corruption. He mentioned the IMF report that said that 75% of businesses in the Bahamas, businesses in the Bahamas admitted to paying bribes to grease the wheels of government. And then we also have the investigation, two corruption investigations involving senior members of the police force and a high-ranking politician allegedly requesting $2 million to be a facilitator.
No, on a point of order. No, on a point of order. On a point of order.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder, who's standing on a point of order. What's your point of order, Senator?
She's misleading. In fact, that is a complete misstatement of what is in the indictment. We are not going to go down this road today, Mr. Chairman. Mischaracterizing this side with a bunch of lies and untruths will not happen in this place today, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if she wants to refer to the matter, she can read from the indictment itself.
What's the point of order?
Let me see how the senior attorney going to deal with his colleague doing.
It's my good friend, but I'm not going to let her go down this road today.
I'm a senior at
So I object. She is misleading,
senior at the bar.
and what she has said is not the truth, Mr. Chairman. Read the indictment.
Deal with it.
Senator,
He doesn't deal with the point of order, is it?
what is what Senator Pinder? If you can just clarify what the indictment or what the
So
point of
nowhere
order is
in the
exactly?
indictment does it say that a senior politician requested $2 million. Nowhere did it say anything to that fact.
Didn't request it.
It didn't say anything to that. What it says, Mr. Chairman, is that the police officer alleged no, you didn't. You said he collected.
High-ranking politician allegedly
Allegedly what? Finish.
requesting $2 million.
No, he
to be a
didn't. That's not what the
facilitator.
indictment says. That is not what the indictment says. It says that the police officer said he could get a politician to do something for $2 million. There's nothing about any politician even being part of this. It could have been side banter, Mr. Chairman. But I'm not going to let her sit there and allege that a politician agreed to take $2 million when that's not what it says, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Not in this place today.
Yes. Thank you.
Shut this place down.
Senator, do you want to rephrase or recharacterize your statement to say exactly what it says?
Did it?
Sorry. So
Otherwise, to just expunge it from the records?
you're minded you can strike it, but I'm not.
You're not withdrawing it.
No, I'm not withdrawing it.
I move to strike that portion of the statement from the record.
My colleague, well, Mr. Chair, now you're in the chair, but my colleague opposite is a fan of history. And history gives us insight into how past events and decisions have shaped the world we live in today. This helps us to understand current social, political, and economic conditions. Mr. Chair, on that fateful day in the spring of 1965, Lyndon Pinling and Milo Butler, frustrated with the government's refusal to listen to the opposition and make necessary reforms to the electoral system, threw the mace and the hourglass out of the Parliament and to the crowd gathered outside. The House of Assembly is the people's house. Members of Parliament are elected to represent people in that house. Lyndon Pinling and Milo Butler reinforced for the crowd waiting below that the House of Assembly is not the Speaker's house. It is the people's house. Marco City, St. Barnabas, East Grand Bahama, St. Anne's, Central Grand Bahama are members of the opposition party. but they are first and foremost representatives of the people that live in their constituencies. The repeated actions to frustrate the opposition members' participation in the House of Assembly, whether by speaking on matters of national importance or not allowing question time.
Mr. Chairman, on the point of order.
No, it's not
Mr.
a point.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Tyrell Young, who's standing on a point of order. What's your point of order, Senator?
we want to know what's the relevance to the bill that is being debated today, please?
Mr. Chair, if my colleague opposite would let me continue, he would see the tie-in to local government. The repeated actions to frustrate the opposition members' participation in the House of Assembly, whether by speaking on matters of national importance or not allowing the monthly question time, is a frustration and bastardization of democracy. It is the people's house, and their representatives should never be silenced. Sir Lyndon and Sir Milo taught us that. But more than once over the last 3 years, and especially in the last 2 weeks, it has become apparent that the PLP has forgotten their past and lost their way. They once stood for the people and democracy, but that has changed. Former Prime Minister of this country, Mr. Hubert Ingraham, brought us deliverance in 1992. He not only delivered us from PLP's corruption and suppression, but he delivered the Family Islands from ineffective governance. Prior to the enactment of the Local Government Act 1996, the governance of our 700 islands and keys were extremely centralized in Nassau. Help had to come from Nassau. The approval to fix potholes in Eleuthera came from Nassau. The need to fix a broken window at the school in Anagua, approval came from Nassau. Local government brought government closer to the people. Local government ushered in a new era of family island living. District councils are able to respond to the daily needs of their family island communities. The introduction of local government to the Bahamas was a personal passion of Hubert Ingraham. In fact, he dedicated a chapter in volume 1, I think it's chapter 4, but in volume 1 of his anthology to his addresses on this topic. Say what I mean, I mean what I say. He knew that the provision of government services to the family islands needed significant improvement. A change was needed, so he introduced local government. Just like the much needed change to the approach of providing government services to the family islands, we also have to look at ourselves with a critical eye. We must be mature enough to acknowledge, even when it is to our political detriment, where we have gone wrong, and have the courage to make the necessary uncomfortable changes so that we can deliver better to Bahamians. We need to look at the issues that undermine public confidence in our law enforcement agencies. This is not a shake the tree moment. We require deliberate proactivity. This is a climb up the tree, examine every piece of fruit, and get rid of every rotten one moment. Mr. Chairman, this is not the first time that we've had to look at the man in the mirror and make a change. Woodes Rogers had to not only acknowledge piracy, but the extent of piracy in order to expel the pirates. And I'm sure my learned friend, the Attorney General, and his predecessors will tell you that they had to fully understand the ways that persons use our financial services system for nefarious purposes in order to create the tools to prevent it from happening. It is the hard work that they have put in that have resulted in us coming off of that list. These transformations, the end of piracy, the removal from the blacklist, the implementation of local government, required an understanding of where we fell short and a deliberate investment in our future. Local government has undoubtedly improved the provision of government services on the family islands. This bill is a step in the forward direction, but it falls short. And in fact, I'll start with something mentioned by Senator Halkitis. I recommend that the word cousin in section 66 be defined in the act, because 6 degrees of separation just doesn't exist in the Family Islands. I am personally convinced that Senator Hanfield is related to every person in North Abaco. So if cousins have to step out, then nobody will be able to hear anything.
My cousins ain't got nothing.
No.
Yeah, right.
District councils need, as Senator Russell said in his contribution, district councils need an increased budget allocation to enable them to implement substantial improvements to their communities. They should not have to choose between a drain system or garbage collection. Maybe, potentially, relocating a portion of the travel funds or allowing district councils to keep their real property tax in their district would allow councils to have greater financial resources to address pressing local needs such as infrastructure development, social programs, and environmental initiatives. This reallocation would likely lead to enhanced community development and improve the quality of life for residents in those districts. District councils across the length and breadth of the archipelago have advocated for more autonomy. Limited autonomy for local governments can lead to several drawbacks. Firstly, they can hinder the ability of local governments to respond effectively to the unique needs and challenges of their communities. For example, dealing with immigration issues, which are time sensitive. An ineffective and powerless district council can erode public trust and hinder the democratic participation. Whereas, with more autonomy, district councils could offer numerous benefits to communities. When local authorities have greater decision-making power, they can tailor policies and services to the special needs of their residents. This can lead to a more responsive and efficient governance. Increased autonomy can foster innovation and experimentation, as local leaders can implement new ideas without excessive bureaucratic hurdles. This can drive economic development and empower citizens by giving them a greater voice in shaping their communities. By participating in local decision-making processes, residents can feel more connected to their government and more invested in the future of their communities. Fourthly, this is also a missed opportunity to expand local government to New Providence. National issues, of course, will remain the dominion of central government and Parliament, but local councils in New Providence would greatly assist in the provision of government services in our communities. Let's be real, the pothole problem. No one is more keenly aware of where the potholes are than the people who live in the area. They know when the street lights are out. It's their neighborhood park. They have a vested interest in making sure that the grass is mowed, the lights are on, and the swing set isn't broken. For example, the parks in Freetown are in dire need of repair. The lights on the Eastern Parade, they've been out since November 2021. And the Georgina Simonette Park, named after one of our formidable suffragettes, is in an embarrassing state of disrepair. And now, maybe these parks are not on the high priority list for the Beaches and Parks Authority, but for the people who live in Freetown, it impacts their neighborhoods. And these are things that would be more efficiently handled by a district council. In that other place, much has been said about the Bahamas being a unitary state. It's a state where most of the governing power resides in central government rather than a federal state like the US, where power is divided between the states and the federal government. But in our region, we have unitary states like Jamaica, for example, that have more developed local government. And if we can copy Jamaica's Commission of Investigation legislation, why can't we be inspired by their local government structure? Mr. Chairman, Bahamian pride is real. We are proud of these 700 islands and keys and the people who occupy them. We have consistently strived to be better. We have fought to protect our good name, and we do not take it lightly when governments engage in corruption. The PLP cannot run from their history. They have always had an integrity problem. They were voted out for their corrupt behavior.
On a point of order, This is
My opinion?
this is highly inappropriate.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder. Your point of order,
Highly
Senator.
inappropriate, a mischaracterization of the past. And for her to bring this type of allegation and dicta within this place, it's beyond her. She knows better. She knows better. And just because she's trying to prove a point to her failed leader in that other place, to try to peddle some constituency, doesn't allow her to come in here and talk about the most established political party in the history of this country, the political party that brought this country to independence, Mr. Chairman, to mischaracterize the political party that created national insurance, Mr. Chairman. For her to sit there and talk about us like that is misguided, and it should be withdrawn, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, continue.
Thank you. They were voted out for their corrupt behavior in 1992, in 2007, and 2017. And God willing, they'll be voted out again when the next election is called. Because our country cannot survive another term of what we are given by this administration. Corruption is a pervasive issue, undermines trust, hampers development, and perpetuates inequality. It can manifest in various forms, from bribery to embezzlement, to favoritism and fraud, affecting both public and private sectors. We must have no tolerance for it. In the Westminster system, the opposition is crucial for ensuring government accountability and transparency, promoting robust debate and improving legislation, offering alternative policies and solutions for voters, representing the interests of those not aligned with the ruling party, and proposing amendments to enhance laws. This balanced approach helps maintain a healthy and functioning parliamentary democracy. Therefore, if we have a House of Assembly that is making it a habit of silencing the opposition, it is unhealthy, unparliamentary, and when we have question time, unparliamentary and undemocratic. Before the senators opposite jump up out of their seats, Mr. Chairman, although they've already been jumping, nobody is buying their feigned emphasis on following the rules, especially when the rule about the second Wednesday being question time is never followed by them. This New Day PLP looks an awful lot like the old corrupt PLP, but instead of wearing yellow shirts, they simply changed their shirts to blue. The writing is on the wall. This administration's days are numbers. The people are once again ready for deliverance, and we in the F&M, whenever the bell is rung, will show them what democracy looks like. I rest.
Thank you for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable James Roll Turner.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Senators.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. It is once again a pleasure to be in this honorable hall, in this honorable chamber. And it is good to see many of my good senators here this morning. But as I get going, before my memory deceives me, let me declare that I am a New Day PLP. Let me declare that I wear yellow and blue proudly, and there is no such corruption associated with us. So let me declare that. Firstly, let me go on to say that, like many of you, the past few months have been busy because we have taken the time as persons involved with responsible and good governance to continue to ensure that we are well aware of what's happening in our island neighborhoods, looking at their concerns, looking at their celebrations, addressing their losses, and even their expectations. We know that death is often among us, and I send condolences to all of those who recently buried their loved ones. We know that a good friend of the island, Mr. Barry Pinder, and his family will bury their father tomorrow. So certainly I want to take this time to send my condolences to the loss of their father. I will also take this time to say that a good man, a strong man of our community who is also a reverend, one of our senior pastors, Reverend Pinder, just came out of the hospital, and we wish him well as he recovers from his health issues. Now, many of you would know that even every time we meet, we talk about death, we talk about funerals, we talk about things that are happening. We try to bring you a snapshot of what's happening in Grand Bahama, and you know there are two senators from Grand Bahama. There's Senator Russell and there's myself. I will dare to say that Senator Russell is becoming what we shall term a funeral specialist, because he covers from the east to the west of Grand Bahama. I have yielded that position to him, and I stand here saying to you that I will make it my business to attend every wedding and every celebration on Grand Bahama. To that state, I would also like to take this time from this honorable place to congratulate two individuals on their engagement. Two police officers, a dear friend Jovan and his bride-to-be, Kasnell. I'm wishing them very well, and I pray that God will bless them as they continue on their journey together. Let me now turn my attention to the Royal Bahamas Police Force, for that matter. Several weeks ago, there were 3 graduating classes on the island. 2 classes from Grand Bahama, 1 class from Nassau. And I ought to tell you that I saw the splendor of opportunity and career in the eyes of those young recruits. I saw the pride and the joy of parents who were pleased with the path that their youngsters were taking. This was not only good for the Bahamas, you know, but it was good for family islanders, because we saw young people recognizing that even as we rebuild certain areas, even as we rebuild portions of Grand Bahama, the community has not been forgotten. In East Grand Bahama, we continue to be pleased with many things, by the way. I've said to you on many occasions what has happened with the McLeanstown School. This is a school where the children were once being transported for about an hour to get to a school facility. That no longer happens. Last week, those students celebrated Thanksgiving at their school. And I ought to tell you that it was a wonderful time looking at the little darlings of this nation and seeing the twinkle in their eyes at being closer to home once again. So good things are happening in Grand Bahama. On Grand Bahama, we are steadily moving in the right direction on many fronts. You heard earlier, $2 billion in investments on the ground. The hospital construction continues to come out of the ground. You're seeing the Carnival Cruise Port being realized right before our eyes. You're seeing the Grand Bahama shipyard update as well. I ought to say, by the way, to the Bahamians at the Grand Bahama shipyard, those employees who are making us aware that while folks who are visiting our country are working full hours, Bahamians are being given restricted days, we are hearing your cry, and that matter will be addressed. Now I know, Mr. Chairman, I suspect that from the lofty hills of the nation's capital, there are those who do not know that the Grand Bahama power continues to inflict a certain burden on the Grand Bahama populace. We have been experiencing unreliable power, damage to our appliances, and unusually high electricity bills, especially during summer. For many of us, this usage has not changed, but the bills reflect major commercial use in residential locations. This is why, for many, it is welcomed to change the regulator, because clearly something is not right. We live in one Bahamas, led by one prime minister, governed by one government, and we expect that just as the rest of the Bahamas complies with the laws of the Bahamas, Grand Bahama ought to as well when the government regulator is identified as IRCA. However, let me also say it is good to see that despite their request for an increase, it has not been permitted as yet. We will remain focused and vigilant should anyone attempt to abuse our gentle nature in this country. We have many things to fix around the Bahamas, and certainly there are some elements in Grand Bahama that we will continue to address. I will say to you, colleagues, that in all of the discomfort in recent times, and all of the suggestions of protest in recent times, I take comfort in noting that in recent times, Grand Bahamians have mended together and bonded, coming from the left, coming from the right, putting aside their political preferences and differences to make sure that that which is right and that which is wrong is addressed. I say to you that, justice is like freedom. There ought to be no man in bonds to slavery or inequality in pursuit of common things, such as power to his home, education, and opportunity in this life. Now to the matter at hand, the Local Government Bill 2024. Mr. Chairman, I am standing before you as a senator residing on a family island, albeit called the nation's second city. Family Islanders deserve the same attention and opportunities as citizens that reside in New Providence. We are all Bahamians. We all know that over many past years, in most cases, the family islands did not get the kind of attention they required. But gratefully, we see that since recent years, things are moving in a positive direction on most of the family islands. In fact, I've once mentioned here before that it is great that we have a leader of this country who represents the family island area. It is good that we have a deputy leader that also represents the family island area. For you see, they know and can feel the challenges and the plights of a family islander. And as such, it is very evident that they are responding appropriately. While the Local Government Act of 2024 builds on the previous Act of 1996, which intended and to an extent did give the local districts some autonomy, we have also seen over the years that the autonomy has been reduced. Clearly, with limited statutory authority and limited financial resources, councils could not realize their full potential. With the presentation of an assistant director, I believe this will cause for the greater focus of the task, specifically the responsibility of the districts and regions. In addition, these type persons assigned as assistant directors can be a very direct link to the central government as required. Gone will be the bottleneck. Most of us know there is occasionally a gap between what some local government practitioners advance versus what is required. I believe the adjustments to the 2024 bill will address some of this. I also saw in the bill a move towards greater transparency. The bill is quite clear on budgeting, funding, and audit requirements. And as we move forward, this is the type of behavior we all expect to see. In addition, I also saw indications of an increase in support. And it also gives the districts the authority to raise funds. These things are good, and this too, I believe, is good towards creating a sense of sustainability. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I must confess that local government elections for me have been an exercise in amusement in certain years, because there really was very little substance presented during these campaign platforms. This bill now standardizes the election procedures, which will allow practitioners to be able to plan better, and that's a plus. Mr. Chairman, there were a number of persons that worked on this bill, and I say to those coming from a family island, I say to those, thank you, because those servants of our country have done a good job. There is also something to be said about a man in a group that publicly declares his or their intention and does just that. I recall that this current government, when they came to office, presented their blueprint for change, and just as they spoke of making changes associated with local government, surely those changes were presented. Today, we see yet another manifestation of a government commitment. This is what credibility looks like. This is what commitment to a task looks like. This is a picture that the Bahamian public enjoys seeing. As such, Mr. Chairman, I do stand and support the Local Government Bill of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. As many. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable J.Ann Major.
Mr. Chairman, it is a pleasure to rise and represent the concerns of the Bahamian people and to offer my contribution to the Local Government Bill of 2024, a piece of legislation that represents a pivotal shift in the local government system in the Bahamas. Before turning to the bill, however, Mr. Chairman, I would be grateful if you would permit me the opportunity to address two preliminary matters. Firstly, it would be remiss of me if I didn't recognize that the last time we met in this honorable chamber on Monday, the 18th of November, 2024, we were joined by Dr. Sandra Dean Patterson and other members of the Crisis Center and the Rotary Club of Nassau, who pinned each of us with white ribbons in recognition of White Ribbon Day, a global initiative which encourages men and boys to show their commitment to ending violence against women and children. Sadly, Mr. Chairman, just a few days later, we learned of the senseless and cruel murders of two innocent females, 12-year-old Adrielle Moxie, whose life was stolen from her before it could truly begin, and 72-year-old Venetia Butler, whose golden years were cruelly cut short. Mr. Chairman, there are no words to adequately describe the grief and outrage that their families are experiencing in the face of such unimaginable violence. I extend my heartfelt condolences to the families and loved ones of young Adrielle and Miss Butler. Please know that you are not alone in this sorrow. We stand with you, offering our prayers and our support. As a community, we should first all recognize that combating violence and tackling crime is not a one-man job. It is a collective responsibility, and we should all be committed to working together toward building a society that is rooted in compassion, respect, and peace, where violence, especially against our most vulnerable members of society, has no place. Mr. Chairman, while I speak about respect, peace, and working together, I must also take this opportunity to address what happened in the other place yesterday. The disruptive behavior displayed by members of the opposition yesterday did little to advance any of the critical issues currently facing our nation. These actions were not rooted in a cause or a movement for the betterment of country. They were rooted in ego.
Ego, that's right. One man's ego.
What we saw instead was a mockery and an insult to Bahamian history. There was no threat to democracy, as the opposition has continuously misled the Bahamian public to believe. It was a blatant disregard for the rules of the House. What we saw was theatrics. What we saw was a performance. What we saw was chaos. Perhaps the members of the opposition had a point to prove after receiving such a major tongue lashing last week and being humiliated by the leader of the Coalition of Independents. Mr. Chairman,
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michaela Barnett-Ellis.
Mr. Chairman, the member is misleading in that the member is trying to speak to the state of minds of the
Senator?
members of the speak to the state of mind of the members of the opposition. She is not a mind reader, to the best of my knowledge. So not as I'm aware. So she's not able to speak or make comments to suggest their motivation, well, then she can say, in my opinion. But she didn't say, in my opinion. So if she's going to say, well, she needs to say, in my opinion.
I said what we saw, as in
No,
what I saw.
in my opinion. No, in my opinion. She can't speculate. And you weren't there. We were there.
I was there.
Mr. Chairman. Yep, I was there.
Senators.
Yeah. But Mr.
Senators.
Chairman, she needs to say either in my opinion or she can't speculate as to what the motivation was because
Thank you.
she's unaware.
Thank you. Senator.
Mr. Chairman, in my humble opinion, it was not rooted in democracy. It was rooted in ego.
As well as
And it's also the opinion of many Bahamians this morning. Mr. Chairman, after the conduct of members of the opposition yesterday, social media platforms were flooded with laughable memes and commentary about what took place.
It was.
Mr. Chairman, what we also unfortunately saw was violence that resulted in the injury and hospitalization of a police sergeant and the deputy speaker of the House. This is nothing to be proud of. This type of behavior should not be encouraged. Robust debates and political jabs and high emotions on critical issues, they come with the territory. But when we come together in this chamber and in the House, we owe the Bahamian people a duty. We owe them a duty to act responsibly and respectfully and with integrity and to lead by example. We cannot just throw a tantrum when we don't get our way. Mr. Chairman, I understand that Sergeant Penniman has since been released from the hospital to recover at home for the next few days, while the Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Sylvanus Petty, has remained hospitalized overnight. I wish them both a speedy recovery. We owe it to the Bahamian people to do better.
Senators, the senator has the floor. Can you please let her contribute? No, they didn't. I can't hear her.
We owe it to the Bahamian people to do better. We have the people's work to do, so let's do better.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I now turn to the Local Government Bill of 2024, which is significant in modernizing and reviving local governance in our family islands. We've heard the cries of many family islanders that their communities have been overlooked, and many can acknowledge that not enough attention has been given to develop and grow these island communities over the years. The introduction of the Local Government Act of 1996 by the Ingram administration was monumental at that time, because for the first time, we had legislation that established local district councilors, local government districts, family island administrators, and local town committees, and empowered elected leaders and local bodies in those islands to govern their relevant districts without the interference from central government. Almost 30 years later, however, we have seen that the 1996 Act is no longer effective in building and advancing our family island communities. Some of the major challenges facing local government in the Bahamas include resource allocation and revenue generation. Local governments need adequate funding to manage public services and to develop projects in their communities. Unequal distribution of resources has resulted in the status quo, the family islands receiving less attention and less resources to serve their communities. There's been a lack of fair and sustainable systems for raising local revenue. Another challenge has been coordination between central government and local government. While autonomy is absolutely necessary, there still must be coordination with central government to ensure alignment on national issues, policies, and goals, like national security and infrastructure projects. We have not been able to strike that balance between coordination and allowing flexibility for local adaptation. There's also been a lack of capacity building and training, another challenge to the local government system. Local leaders need training and capacity building initiatives to develop the skills needed for governance. This would mean offering training programs for local officials and staff to build competence in governance, financial management, and public administration. It also means educating the citizens on their role in local governance to encourage participation. Another major challenge has been a lack of community involvement and representation. Our Family Island residents are traditionally underrepresented in national decision-making that directly affects them. We must ensure that all voices in these Family Island communities, including marginalized groups like women, youth, and indigenous populations, are represented in the decision-making. Mr. Chairman, my honorable members have provided their valuable contributions to this bill. So I will keep my contributions brief, but focused on the key elements of this bill which address some of these major challenges that I've just outlined. First, resource allocation and revenue generation. The bill provides financial autonomy by way of revenue-raising powers. Local government bodies can fix fees and charges for services relating to the establishment, upkeep, and maintenance of public spaces. The minister is also empowered to prescribe or amend these fees. All fees and charges collected will go into the local government account for the council of that specific district. Council would be required to set an annual budget and account for all spending. This would result in more equitable distribution of public funds in these communities. The bill also provides for a rebate on the fees and taxes that would have been paid by those communities, and they shall be paid out of the consolidated fund and applied by council to meet the necessary expenditures in their respective districts. Mr. Chairman, the bill also addresses the issue of capacity building and training. It outlines the clear roles, responsibilities, and functions of local government officials, and it provides for annual mandatory training for all local government officials on their functions, duties, and powers that are conferred upon them by this legislation. If we want our Family Island communities to thrive, we have to empower them and equip them with the skills and training needed to effectively govern. Finally, the bill represents a clear increase in the decision-making powers in these communities. Where people feel that their opinions are valued, they tend to thrive better. Mr. Chairman, I wish to commend the Honorable Minister of Works and Family Island Affairs for leading the charge in formulating this transformative but long overdue piece of legislation. Local government reform was a promise outlined in this administration's blueprint for change, and the Davis administration is following through on that promise. While members of the opposition may wish to nitpick at certain elements of the bill and speak of missed opportunities for the sake of playing politics, they also understand the need to support this bill. The reform of this almost 30-year-old legislation was advanced not by the opposition who birthed this initial act, but it was advanced by the Davis administration. This bill signifies this administration's commitment to no longer overlook our Family Island communities and instead empower them to build and grow these communities that they call home. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I give my full support to this bill. May God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you. Who's next?
Thank you for your contribution, Senator. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Hanfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be in this place this morning to represent the views of the His Majesty's loyal opposition. And I wonder, Mr. Chairman, why everybody appear to be so sensitive about certain issues and things that have been said in here this morning. I sense a certain level of anxiety. we should allay all of those fears, you know, because in time, the fella in America will call names. In fact, according to the Prime Minister's communication given last week in the House of Assembly regarding the indictment, I don't know why Senator Barnett was so attacked. I read from the indictment from the Prime Minister's communication in the House of Assembly last week. And here's what the Prime Minister says about it. He says, to clarify, the indictment states, and I quote, the defendant said that in exchange for $2 million US, a high-ranking Bahamian politician who was named would authorize the assistance and involvement of the Bahamian law enforcement officials. And then the Prime Minister went on to say, there is no allegation that any payments were made. Distinguish that. Were made. You can't prove that these payments were made, not yet. That's not been proven yet. There's no allegation that they were made. There's no allegation that they were made. The allegation is that this high-ranking officer now, who's in the custody of federal authorities in the United States, said that a high-ranking Bahamian official for $2 million will secure the services of the police. That's it. That's all she's saying.
That's not what she said, though.
She wasn't saying nothing more than that.
That's not true. That's not true.
She wasn't saying nothing more than that. And the Prime Minister also acknowledged in his statement that the official was named. And in that particular federal court in the U.S., a court in New York 9th District, 10th District, they have been very, very judicious in the way that they prosecute these matters.
The prosecutor resigned the day after he filed his indictment.
In the way that they prosecute these matters.
Political official was named.
And yes, Senator, we owe it to the Bahamian people that we perform in a way in these hallowed halls that will endear their trust. That will endear their trust. You know, Shakespeare says it, you know. Shakespeare said it's only a stage, man. It's only a stage for 15 minutes. You get up and you strut your stuff. and then you exit that stage. But democracy requires fair play and equity. Democracy is not just about who has the power to rule, you know. And I didn't like it when it happened on our watch, and I don't like it now. Because on our watch you had 4. On this watch we have 7. And the minority must be allowed to have its say. Because we know that the government will have its way. And any government which stops a minority from having its say ought to be ashamed of itself. Ought to be ashamed of itself. I'm not saying, I say any government who does it. If it's mine, if it's yours, should be ashamed of itself. Should be ashamed of itself. Answer what questions? I answered every question as a Minister of Foreign Affairs put to me. I answered them on the floor at the time they were asked. Go back and look at the Hansard. Answered everyone. And if I didn't have an answer for my colleagues opposite, I promised them that I would get the answer and get it to them. And that's what I did. But there was never a question put to me as a Minister of Foreign Affairs that I recall that I never answered on the floor, on the spot. Because I believe that's the duty and responsibility of a minister of the government to do so. So because they ain't do it, you ain't gonna do it? So y'all because they ain't do it, you ain't gonna do it? Anyway, man. I want to begin, Mr. Weiss, by congratulating Bishop Herbert Edgecombe and the Faith Walk Church of God in Cooperstown on the celebration of 110 years in the service of the Lord. Bishop Joseph Smith came down and preached a wonderful message and encouraged the church to continue for another 110 years should the Lord tarry. Yeah, it was a good service. Last Saturday, the Newbold family laid to rest my mom's first cousin. For the first time in my life, I knew her to be all my life Birdie. We call her Cousin Birdie. And so when they put in the obituary and the notice and stuff, Viola, I was like, you know, so I said to Trevor and Farron and Debbie and the rest of them, Lisa and the rest of them, I don't know her as Viola. I only knew her all of my life as my mom's special cousin, and they lived like sisters. Cousin Birdie was a woman when she walked into a room, she lit it up with a smile. And she never had a bad word to say to or about anyone that I know of. She was a wonderful encourager, a wonderful woman of God and Methodist who did her part and left with us in the community some wonderful children who continue to do extremely well in North Abaco and particularly in the central area of Abaco. Business people and the like who contribute tremendously to the development of our island and our country. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice, I begin this morning by thanking the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Clayton Fernando, for his service to the people of the Bahamas. Often in service such as the police force, the defense force, and other public service, people don't get the thanks that they deserve because most of us don't appreciate the hours spent in pursuit of our obligations and our duties. And so I simply want to congratulate Mr. Fernando and wish him well in his future endeavors. I wish also to congratulate the incoming Commissioner, Ms. Shanta Knowles, who becomes the first woman to assume the role of Commissioner of Police. The women in here should be very proud of that. And I want to say to Commissioner Knowles, whom I know, as a member of the service, I know her. And Commissioner Knowles was recently appointed the officer in charge of Grand Bahama. She wasn't there for that long, in the northern Bahamas. She had responsibility and oversight for Grand Bahama, Abaco, and Bimini and those areas, Berries. I want to say to you, Commissioner Knowles, you're not coming into an easy spot. You're assuming a post at a time when this country needs the assurance that our Royal Bahamas Police Force, which is the principal law enforcement agency in the country, it's hard for me to say that as a member of the Defense Force formally, but I distinguish because you are law enforcement and we are military, and we enforce from a maritime perspective. And so I distinguish in that way. You are coming into office at a time when things have to be settled down, when the Bahamian people have to be once more assured that our police force is in good hands, because I believe that we have the majority of our officers are very good people who join the police force to help their country, and they're doing a wonderful job. But you know this saying, it only takes one apple, and then everybody will say the entire bunch is spoiled. But we have confidence that you will do the job that is required of you. You will rise to the task and fulfill our expectations in that role. We also assure you that we stand ready to assist you in any way on this side that we can to make your job a successful one. Because when you succeed, all Bahamians succeed. Yes. Now, Mr. Vice, I understand that Senator Russell mentioned that Prime Minister Ingram, as he was Right Honorable Prime Minister Hubert Ingram in 1996, as did the senator who spoke just ahead of me. Yeah, this is volume 1. This is volume 1, which is I say what I mean and I mean what I say. Hubert Ingram, and I've said this before in this place, that this is a wonderful resource that you can readily go to find information on things that were important occasions that happened in the country during his watch, the non-consecutive terms of 15 years I think he served as Prime Minister of the Bahamas. And so I want to begin by saying that it was an F&M government. You know, you all take claim for the Defense Force for National Insurance and all those other things. And you say we didn't, the College of the Bahamas, don't leave with the College of the Bahamas. And you say we didn't do anything. But we introduced, through Prime Minister Ingram's administration, local government in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in the form in which we now know it. Until then, Bahamians across the family of islands had very little say in the way that they were governed and the way that things were done. They followed the edicts of the central government very slavishly, and Senator Russell indicated that in those days we had Family Island Commissioners. You all remember, some of you are not old enough to remember what a Family Island Commissioner was.
I remember.
The Family Island Commissioner was considered the mayor on the island. Every island that had a Family Island Commissioner, because he represented the central government. He represented the seat of power in the island, and he held court cases. He administered central government affairs, and he basically, or she basically, looked after everything. He looked over government finances, everything he did. And so it was primarily for this reason. And I would call him, we called Sir Lyndon the father of the nation. I'd call the Right Honorable Hubert Ingram the father of local government in the Bahamas. It's for this reason that he introduced local government, because he wanted Bahamians in the family of islands to have more say, more control over the way that they were governed. He had this mantra that he used: government is best, which is nearest the people. And so local government, in his mind and in the mind of his administration, brought government nearer to the people, for them to have a say in it. In his book, which I just held up there just now, and advise anybody to get it who needs to consult for things that happen on page 498, Ingram notes that local government was born out of an innate desire to respond to the life of the neglect endured by residents of virtually every family island community of the 1940s and the 1950s. Now, today in here, I heard someone from Grand Bahama say, Grand Bahama is a family island. I don't know if Grand Bahamians accept that. They call themselves the second city, right? But life could be tough on the family island. And sometimes in the family island, you can feel almost like a second-class citizen. Local government, I believe, prior to local government, I believe, alleviated some of that feeling, because you had people who lived in your midst who could be elected as council members and committee members, who would serve on local boards. And you could directly touch them when you wouldn't see an MP for a while. And MPs, you know, members of parliament should want to encourage the development of local government, the devolvement of this power from central government, because it takes the burden off of them some. Because local government was given the purview to do certain things in their districts. But we have to ensure, those of us who sit in the seat of power, as you do now, we have to ensure that they're given the tools to do those things that they're called upon to do. I try to explain to people that there are many competing factions for the government dime. And sometimes the government has to, in its own inevitable way, make the decision, make the choice to say, I can't do this now, I'll do that later, but I have to do this now. And local government is no exception. But I believe that local government needs the care that it deserves for the practitioners of local government to get the things done in their districts and in their communities that they so require to be done. And so the introduction of local government throughout the islands of the Bahamas represented a concerted effort to devolve power from central government control to a local administrative control. When passed into law, this new act, this bill, will repeal and replace the Act of 1996. And I've spoken to to local government practitioners who've been in the business for a while, and for all its efforts, they say to me that this bill doesn't do that much to advance their cause and their concerns in local government. But you know, yeah. Well, I understand you had consultations with them widely. Yeah, I understand that, but I also understand that some of them feel that they were not listened to if you consulted with them, right? And so this will repeal and replace the 1996 Act. And I believe when you repeal and replacing something, Senator, I believe we must feel the difference in it, man. We must feel the change within it, within the four corners of the bill, right? And for them, most of them say this doesn't do that for them. In fact, some in central Andros, where this bill will change the district, right? They are most convinced that this is a regressive move for them. You know, they say to me that in central Andros, the bill will transfer Stanyard Creek, Blanket Sound, and Stafford Creek Township to North Andros District, from North Andros District to Central Andros because of proximity. And you know, people are very defensive about their local councils. Because you feel if you live in Congo Town and the thing go to Mangrove Key, you're not going to be given that attention that the people in Mangrove Key will be getting because it's now under their purview. And so some 90% of the people in that district, I understand, disagree with this particular move. They had the minister there along with the assistant director. They had a meeting, and I hope the minister listens to the consultations that they gave. Yeah, they're moving it. And so what they're saying is polling divisions 11, 12, and 13 of North Andros and the Berry Islands, they don't wish to move. They don't want to move, right? Well, that's what they say. And I know that's what consultation is all about. So all it takes is from someone from the government to say to them why.
I can tell you about that.
Why you got to move, right?
I can tell you about that.
But they asked me to say to you here in the Senate that they're not pleased with this move. And I think they expressed the same to the minister and the assistant director while they were in that meeting.
I can give you the backstory.
It got kind of rowdy. I saw a video of the meeting. It got kind of rowdy. And so this bill will repeal and replace the 96 bill. All of the consultations that I participated in from Central Andros to Abaco seem to suggest that this bill doesn't really go too far in yielding the control of the central government to the people on the ground in their districts that they seek to have. I don't know what they're telling you all in Grand Bahama and those districts outside of Freeport, right? But they want more control, and I think we live in an era where we have to find a way, I said this in here before, where we have to find a way to ensure that Bahamians feel more control over their lives, more control over the decision-making processes. Because the family islands are in a state now where they feel like they ought not be governed by decision makers in central government, and ministries in New Providence and Nassau, who don't really even know their districts, right? That's the way they feel, and I promised to them that I would share it with my colleagues here in this place. And so it appears, Mr. Vice, that this administration is interested in limiting the powers to them at a time when Bahamians are calling for more participatory governance in our country. They want to participate more. In the speech from the throne, at the opening of Parliament, I think this administration promised to leave, I know we did, promised to leave a portion of the revenue collected by local government practitioners in the districts to address their local needs. It was said that my government will provide a portion of the revenue collected by the district councils to be used to address local needs. You know, in Abaco in particular, right, where when we are in our heyday, I've heard estimates, and the minister can probably correct me on this. I've heard estimates that we could do in the range of 270 million to 280 million per year. This is pre-Dorian and pre-COVID and all the rest of it. So we're very, very productive in putting money into the central fund, into what we call that thing again? The consolidated fund. But Abaconians believe that not enough of that money comes back to help us in the upkeep of the island so that we could be able to provide that money for those islands that can't provide that kind of income for themselves. Because we all know that the islands down south, they won't be able to provide for themselves without the assistance of the other islands. But all we're asking for in Abaco, Minister, is enough to keep us at a standard where we can provide, right? And we can help you to put more money in the consolidated fund. What those practitioners say to me now is that they're not going to collect any money for this government to put in the consolidated fund because they ain't going to get it back. And that's a legitimate concern. We need to find a way to incentivize them. I don't know if the mechanism is a percentage of what the island brings in. However the government wants to do it, to encourage them to go and collect real property taxes, for instance. Second homeowners in these islands, many of them get away. They find loopholes how to dodge inland revenue and not pay their fair share. And they know where they come from, they can't do that. Right? You got to pay your fair share of taxes. And so we should incentivize these local government practitioners that if you go and collect so many million, that we will leave with you 10%, 7%, 5%, whatever that magic number might be, to encourage them to say, you can keep this money and tend to your roads, tend to your docks, tend to your verges, because right now they only have enough money. According to them, they only have enough money to look at things within the communities, not on the outskirts, on the highway. Abaco, as I was saying to the Attorney General, has Shirley-Boodle Highway, and it has Ernest Dean Highway. And that's like 50 miles from Marsh Harbor to Sandy Point, one way, and another, almost 40 miles from Marsh Harbor to Crown Haven on the other end. And that's a lot of road to maintain. And there's a lot of verges to maintain. You know, I had Ms. Damianos, who has the little grocery store there in the heart of Marsh Harbor. She says to me, Darren, if I catch a flat on that road coming up from Leisurely, I am afraid to even pull on the side. There's no way for me to pull on the side because the trees now are impeding the verges of the road. And so we're past that stage now where we're going to need a bush hog to go in there and do the maintenance. We're probably going to need some of those machines that pair loaders and backhoes to go in there and rip up the roots of these things and push them back off of the road so there could be more safety. And those roads are already dark. And so I told her that I would say that to my colleagues here in the Senate. Hopefully it wouldn't fall on their affairs. Hopefully it wouldn't fall on their affairs. So as I look at Clause 4 of the bill, which provides for additional assistant directors, and this is a new addition. We had previously in the first bill, in the 96 bill, we had the director and then we had the assistant director. We had the director and the deputy director. Now we're providing for deputy directors, which means that we will have more, I hope we will have more oversight of local government issues and matters. We shouldn't have anything lagging behind, right, with all of this help. Because sometimes, you know, and honestly, the districts are so huge that an assistant director could be well employed to help look after these various districts spread all across the country. We just hope you hire people that are competent. If you don't have them, I can recommend some of them. People that are competent to fill these roles, people who are nationalists, who are looking for the betterment and the development of the country as we all are. That's what we hope. We don't want you to use this just as a tool for more hiring, just for hiring's sake. We want you to hire some people who are committed to getting the job done. Clause 9, 4, you ain't got no power, man. I send my list of fellas with power, man. And the minister for local government and family island affairs and the minister who works, Clay Sweeting, is my friend. He's an island boy. I talk to them directly, man. I go to them directly. I need some stuff from him right now in Abaco. You carry a message from me to your brother. Okay. I need some more stuff right now in Abaco. We just need to clean. Some roads need to fix. Because your local government should have some money that central government and ministry works don't have to be worried about patching these holes. Because it takes them too long to get there. When local governments see the issues right on the spot, they can get some hot patch and fix the road. Right? They can go and make ready repairs to the docks. Right? We need money, man. We ain't talking about lip service here. We need money. We need money, man. We ain't talking about no lip service here. Right? And so clause 9.5 of the bill prohibits town committees from entering into any contract which extends beyond the term of the members of the committee, of the town committee. Now, this is what they say to me. There may be some contracts, for instance, a garbage contract that they engage in, right? And a fella goes out and get a dump truck, procures a dump truck or two, and they may want to extend beyond the 3-year period of the life existence of that particular term because of the sizable investment a fella might make, right? Or a company might make into that. And so they don't quite agree that the contracts, such important contracts, should last the lifetime of their term in some instances. There may be some that you can do that with, but other contracts you have to look at more specifically because it's unfair for a fellow to go and invest money that he cannot recover over a 3-year period during the term of his contract. It's unfair for them to contract a fellow like that. And we like to say in central government that government lives on, right? And so when we contract in central government, we contract for the next government, right? We often do that. And the obligations have to be met by the next government, the next administration. And that's the law. All right? That's the law. We met some in the drawer too. We met some in the drawer that we didn't know existed. We met some and you pull open the drawer. Oh, that's $200 million in this drawer of contracts. And so we have to find a better way to do that. And I think we try to do that by some of the laws, reporting laws that we had. So us or you can't abuse this system. Right? We try to do that. You want one? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the business of the Senate to continue beyond 1 p.m. this afternoon.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate continue beyond the 1 p.m. hour. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The business of the Senate will continue beyond 1 p.m. Senator Hanfield.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And so they believe that some contracts have to be, just to recap, specifically looked at to see if they should extend beyond the term. And we should be flexible with these things because it's real life stuff we're dealing with here. A fellow going and make an investment, he has to recover that investment. He has to recover that investment, right? It won't be fair to him trying to get in business and do a public service at the same time. And then he's left undone. Clause 16.1, and I won't be much longer. Clause 16.1 allows for fixed fees and charges for the upkeep and maintenance and the establishment of public areas. Now, in New Providence, Minister, I mentioned this to you, these parks, roads and parks and beaches, they get contracts from roads and parks, from the ministry, to do these things. We don't get no such contracts in the Family Islands. And so if you're going to ask us to go and collect monies from the use of the parks, to get revenue to help us to upkeep these areas, I think personally is unfair. Because, I mean, as soon as Bahamians know that you're going to be charged to use a park, then you're using a park. In reality, very, very seldom you will find Bahamians in small groups will say, well, I need to use the Murphytown Park I need to use Dundastan Park, Cooperstown Park, and I'm prepared to pay whatever the fee is to use that park. And I know it's a good effort to cause them to be able to collect funding to keep the areas clean. After people use the parks, they sometimes leave them in a state of disarray, right? But I think you need to look at this again. If you're going to ask us to do that, you should subsidize what we do in these parks, because it is difficult enough for local government practitioners to upkeep these parks, let alone do it from the monies that we anticipate that they may raise from these public parks. And I always lamented the notion anyway that in New Providence there are garbage contracts that are paid for by the central government. There are roadside contracts that are paid for by the central government. There are beach cleaning contracts that are paid for by the central government. And in the Family Islands, you know, unless the government outlays a capital fund of some kind to infuse some capital in there to get certain things done, we don't get them done. And so there must be more parity in the way that we approach these things. Now, clauses 28, 30, and 37 deal with licensing. Local government boards in the Family Islands find it odious that a central government practitioner who deals with licensing in the Family Islands can sit in New Providence and approve a family island license for a business without their cognizance, without their knowledge. And for good reason. Sometimes the person sitting behind a desk in New Providence might not take the time to go and look or ask, where is this business going to be located? And then you end up with these anomalies where a business is located, a liquor store is located opposite a school, just for adventure. And Senator Russell is saying, or a church, which we find very unacceptable in the Family Islands, right? And so we got to look at how these licenses are issued, that the local government practitioners don't feel as if someone could leapfrog them, come to New Providence, find someone who they know, and get a license without their knowledge, and when they look in their community, the business is going up, right? That's not on as far as they're concerned, and I agree with them. I'm of the view that no licenses should be issued in a district without consultation with town committees, who know their districts far better than anybody who lives in, a bureaucrat who lives in New Providence. Clause 60, sub 7, sub 9A, requires that a council or a town committee submits documentation for approval of procurement of contracts worth between $5,000 and $25,000. To local government practitioners that I spoke to, they find this regressive, because, I mean, $5,000, $25,000 ain't no money. As a minister of the government, the policy was that I could spend $50,000 without coming to the cabinet for approval. You hear you talking about a whole town council. Got to get approval from central government to spend $5,000 to $25,000. That's nonsense. That's nonsense, right? That's nonsense. Local government practitioners should be able to, especially as a collective with supervision of an administrator, who is really the accountant for the local government people, they should be able to manage $25,000 and account for the procurement, the management of that little bit of funds. Because sometimes the more time you take trying to go through these bureaucratic processes, things are happening. Things are happening. If you call speaking for the people campaigning, that's what I doing, man. That's what I doing. If you call speaking for the Bahamian people campaigning, that's what I doing, man. Get up and say where I'm misleading the people. Get up and say where I'm misleading.
On a point of order, I will
get
tell
up
you
on
where
a point of order.
where you, Mr. Vice.
The chair recognizes Senator Tyrell Young.
President, the senator is misleading the public by his statement, because the Financial Act speaks to all government agencies and ministries who have to report directly and request approval for any amount over $5,000 from Central Government Finance Department. So this is not in particular for Family Islands or local government. So he is misleading the public in that aspect. And I ask him, please to have that withdrawn from the record.
Senator Hanfield.
Mr. Vice President, all I'm saying is that $25,000 is not sufficient for the management of local government people. They have an administrator who is their financial officer. I don't have no time for. Yeah, thank you. I don't know. I'm trying to speak for people who need help now. I'm trying to speak for people who need help now. You know, if you want to withdraw.
Senator Hanfield has the floor.
And so in their mind, it appears regressive that a minister in Nassau or the department in Nassau has to approve for them to spend $5,000 or 20, up to $25,000 without approval of their minister or their ministry. Clause 79 provides councils and town committees will be deemed to be an approved authority for the purposes of pension. This is good. As a Family Island member of parliament, you realize right away that local governments did what they were not supposed to do in hiring a bunch of people. But they were responsible for looking after maintenance and janitorial services in certain areas. And so they hired people around the airport, around the schools, and other places, but those people were not entitled to pension. And so I believe this section of the Act provides that the local government authority can now make these people pensionable. I believe that is the case. And if that is the case, people like Ms. Virgie, people like Ms. Ivor Duncan or Murphy Thomas Virgie of the Spring City, I hope we could go back and give them some pension. Because they worked nearly 30 years for local government, and they go home with sometimes a little party they have for them and a watch. If they get a watch. And nothing more than that. Right? And I think that's patently unfair, and I think it's no fault of their own that they were trusted. And then local government practitioners were trying to find people to help them and trying to help the people at the same time, and we understand that. But certain things happen over time that we see to be not working out the way that we wanted to, and I think we can fix these things. It's unfair for someone to work that long a period of time in what could be described as a government service, right, in the local community, and not be able to grab or get at the end of the day a little pension to assist them. And finally, Mr. Chairman, local government practitioners have expressed the notion that they need some kind of enforcement to help them carry out their orders. When they give orders, they don't have teeth. They don't have teeth to get people to do certain things. If they say go and break down a wall, they don't want to go to court for that. In some districts they have around the world, they have somewhat of a constabulary assigned to work with local governments that will cause them to enforce the police sometimes are busy. The police don't have municipal police or something that would help them enforce their orders on the ground, and so to make it look as they have the gravitas to give the maybe you can use reservists to do it, but or I thought about this. I thought that we could have a liaison officer within a community from that police station nearest the community, who local government could pick up the phone and call and say, look, we have this problem, and he becomes then, or she becomes then familiar with the workings of local government, and they're able to go and help them address these concerns. With those few words, I want to also wish Vianna Gardner, a former colleague here in the Senate, a very happy birthday, and to say to you, Vianna, that Maxine and I and Michael are waiting on our cake. That's right. And the rest of these senators here, who worked with you before, you can send our cake, and we'll be right here to have it. We'll let you know when we'll be here.
We want to eat the cake at Atlantis.
Atlanta. Okay, with that I rest. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the business of the Senate do suspend until 2:30 this afternoon.
Is there a seconder? Second. It has been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate be suspended until 2:30 p.m. this afternoon. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The business of the Senate is suspended until 2:30 p.m.